Hello guys, very good afternoon to one and all, and today's session is again on database management systems. And first thing is we gonna build one of the database for our application. Okay, so hope you understand what we have previously. Someone has covered the different parts of DBMS, and he basically covered some of the languages in DBMS, right? So something like DDL, when we have to use DDL, when we have to use DML, all the different stuff he has already covered. So what is my intention is now is, we'll take one example or we'll take one project which is our real-time project, and for that project I just want to build a database to it. So whatever you have learned, like you have learned something like DDL statements, like create, alter, drop and truncate, and you have already learned some kind of DML statements also, like insert, update and delete. Yes, so for this kind of application how you could design your database so that your application and your database will be mutually interconnected. Alright, so for that reason my session is morely on, I'll take a best example as one online shopping website. What are the basic factors will be there in that online shop, right? We'll find out it. After that, we're gonna build our database here. Yes, am I very clear on this, what I'm trying to talk about? So let me revise what is I'm gonna do in the next couple of days time. So in the next coming days of time, I just want to take one of the example. So I'll take online shopping is one of my shopping website. For this shopping website, as I'm a database developer, how do I design my database so that your application and your database will be mutually interconnected, so that your data will be processed from application to a database or database to application? Because right now I'm not talking about anything related to the communication part. Right now I'm just talking about the how do you store the data into a database, that's it. Yes. So that's the reason I'll take an example as online shopping. In this online shopping, what are the factors we have, we'll just identify it. Then we're gonna build the next part, right? So what are the major factors we have in this here in any online shopping website? Alright, now let's just show me the screen once. Here I'm taking an example as one online shopping website. For this, I just want to design one database. Sorry. Before I'm designing this particular database, we have already know about ER diagrams, right? So first thing is, we need to design the ER diagram so that we can convert this ER diagram into a database, or ER diagram into tabular format. Yes. So the base thing is, if it is this online shopping website, I'll just want to create the database to it. What are the application pages we have here? If I'm go for online web application, anything like eBay, Flipkart or all, the first thing is it have a registration page, it have a login page, it have some update password pages, right? It have something like update email ID fields, it have something like update mobile number fields, right? So all these are different kind of things which will be available for this. Okay. Now right now what I want to do is, I want to create the database for a registration page. Alright, I just want to create a database. For this particular database, I want to store some information, right? So your database table information will be stored in tabular format. As I already told you, when I'm talking about relational database management system, everything data will be stored in a tabular format. Here also I'll first create the database, and within the database I'm going to create one table. The table is used to make a registration page. Here first thing is, you have a registration page on the front end. So when a user sends the data to your database, and how could it store the data? Alright. So hope you understand the basics of day and day before yesterday class. So that I just want to give you brief introduction on the project right now. Okay, so you know how to connect to the SQL Server database and all, right? So you have already learned, these are the few basics which we have already learned right now. Okay, so first thing is I just want to create one database. How do I create the database? Create followed by database is the name of a database and followed by the application name. Let's say online shopping is my application, right? So okay, otherwise I'll do one thing, it's a e-shopping, right? The name of a web application, the name of application is e-shopping, and for this particular thing I want to create the database. Pretty simple. You have a execute button on the top of your window there, right? So you have a execute button on the top of this window, alright. So just you need to click on this execute button. Once you set execute, right, so I just want to replace with underscore, there is something wrong, alright. So now what happened is, the moment when you execute this particular thing, it just show you the message called command or commands completed successfully, nothing but if you do any execution, alright. So now let me tell you one thing, alright, let me tell you one thing. For example, I do have some kind of DML statements, right? Alright, I have a DDL statements, right? In this DDL statement, how many statements we have? Create, alter, drop and truncate. Alright. If you do execute any of these 4 queries, if you execute any of these 4 queries, your messages will be this one. Your message of any SQL Server database is this one, is command or commands completed successfully, right? So if the moment when you get this message on the server, or the moment when you get this message on the server, in the sense, you need to understand that your database is created on the back end of your application. So that's the reason what is the message it will be shows you right now, command to command completed successfully. Nothing but as a developer you need to understand that one of the database is created on your SQL Server. Am I very clear? So now as soon as when you create this, I want to create a table within this, because I do have a registration page on the front end, right? So for this registration page I want to create, or I want to map with my database now. So how do I create this particular thing? Now I just want to create everything under the table name called I want to create under table under which database now? eShoppy. Okay. Okay, whenever use command is used to access the particular database. Right. So in this case, for example, as like a front end, we do have some kind of statements will be have like these statements, which is used to comment a line, right? In database, we will usually use 2 hyphen signs to represent anything comment lines. So use eShoppy, nothing but I want to execute everything under this particular part. Now you can just see that your database is right now under eShoppy, nothing but you just need to use this command. Here what is the use of this command? The create database command is used to create a database on SQL Server database, right? So not in SQL Server, guys, if you are using SQL Server, or if you are using Oracle, or if you are using DB2 or anything any databases you can take here, right? Any database you can take here, all the databases uses create database command is used to create the database under that. Alright. Now for example, imagine that your registration page, how your registration page will be on the front end first of all. Now let me show you the structure of a registration page first of all. Alright. So for example, let me go to the I just want to show you the registration page structure. Alright. Now let's see this. This is your registration page which we have basically. Within this I do have a different fields here. Like the first field is username, second field is password, third field is first name, next field is last name, next field is mobile number, next field is email ID, next field is gender, right? And the next field is address, and followed by last one is a submit button. Okay, let me tell you what is what. First of all, say first thing is first name. This is a first name field. then followed by last name field, right, then followed by username field, right, and then the password field, right, then a mobile number field, right, then an email ID field, all right, then a gender field, or the last one is address field. Okay. So, as a user which will enter all these values on the front end, okay, mean to say that he will enter all these values on the front end, right. So, he will enter the username or password, all these things. Now, what a database developer need to do on this part is, for this particular registration page, what I am trying to show you here, whenever the user enters the data and clicks on the submit button here, this is your submit button. Imagine that this is your submit button. As soon as when you click on the submit button, the data has to be submitted onto this particular database. So, under this particular database, before you need to store the data, you need a table over there. You need a table under which database now? E_Shopee, right. Under this particular database, you need to have one table there. If you have a table, then it is pretty simple. Whenever the user is sent, here I am trying to tell you one thing, guys. You know what? When you just create this table, right, so the logic has to be written by another person, right. As a database developer or as a database designer, you need or you have to be good at how to create the database table and how to store the data into this. That is what a basic intention over there. So, how do I create the table now, right? So, create a table is a command is used to create the table, right. So, how do I create the table? Create table, the table name is, you can write any table name and a prefix, always write a TBL underscore, okay. So, TBL underscore stands for table, right. So, what is the thing is user registration or data, okay. So, this is the table I just want to create here, alright. So, as before I am talking about to create all the columns into this, I do want to tell you one more thing here, okay. So, as I want a primary key column on a specific table, right, and that too I need an identity column, okay. So, hope you already learned about identity. Let me repeat what is the mean of identity here, okay. Identity is one of a specific or one of the what I can call it a special kind of column in your database, which the values of this column will be incremented by database itself, okay. So, tell you one thing, right, create a table name is, I am writing a table name is test. In this two columns I want to write, basically I will write a test ID which is of type of integer, next one is test name which is a type of a varchar column, let us see size is 50, right. Two columns here I have, I am trying to select that particular query and execute this, yes, your table is created. Now, what I basically do is I will write an insert statement to insert some data into it. Say insert into table name is what? Test values. If I have this ID column which is not primary key column, which is non identity column, right, what I need to do is I need to pass an ID and followed by I need to pass some name here, let us say dbms, right. Now, select this query and execute it. So, what happened now? As soon as if you execute any of DML statement, previously we used to have a DDL statements, now we have a statements called DML, in which we have something called insert, right, update and delete. If you execute any of these three queries under your database factor, you can get the message called one row or rows are affected, okay. Am I very clear? Even you can go for insert, update or delete, any of these three queries you executed on the SQL Server database, you have a result called one row or rows are affected. Here also it is showing the same thing, one row is affecting. How do I do it? Say select start from the table name is a test, Yes. So how many columns we have? We have 2 columns, and the 2 column values I am passing here, right. Instead of passing this value from my end, instead of passing this value from my user end, I do want to pass this particular ID value from database. I don't want to take a burden now. The database has to automatically increment this particular ID column. In that case, what I need to do now? Okay. So for that, I do one thing. Just observe the both tables now. I am creating one more table here. Table name is test1, where I do have 2 more columns here. Test ID is a type of integer, previous same, and the test name, that is also same. It is a varchar column which is size of 50 now. And here this test value, make this value as primary key, first thing, which supposed to not to accept any duplicates here, because as we have already learned about primary keys in the earlier days, right. And followed by, there is something called it as identity, is a word which takes you 2 input parameters. Parameter 1 is a start value, comma, and second parameter is a incremented value, comma. This is a comma operator between this, right. If I say identity 1 comma 1, what it mean to say that the values of that column, the values of the column will start from 1 and increment also 1. Okay, mean to say it will start by 1, it increment also by 1 now. Alright. Now let me select this particular table and execute it. Okay, nothing but your second table also created. Now let me show you the output for this. Okay. Alright. Now I do one thing, I do insert some records here. Insert into table name is test1 values. So what are the values? First thing is, if I am trying to insert the value 1, if I insert the value as something like dbms here, if I try to execute this particular query, it is showing me an error message. Just observe the error message, what it is. Okay. Okay. So please see that error message, what it basically error is suggesting here. The error is suggesting here that, let's check it out what is this error is. Okay. So please try to understand what is this execute queries. An explicit value for the identity column in a table called test1 can only specified when a column list is used and that identity is already on. Int identity underscore insert is on position, right. So for this, what I supposed to do is, it is pretty simple, that what I need to go for is, if I am writing any column as an identity column in my database table, so for that particular table, that values will not be supposed to pass from my end. Okay. Say insert into one more table you can create it, test1 values. Right now what I do is, I will insert the dbms. Here I am not passing the column 1, because the column 1 values will be incremented by automatically your database itself. Now let me execute it, nothing but your record is inserted. Let us see the record where it is presented. Say select star from is a basic select statement we have already learned in last class also. Right now you can just see that there are only one particular table, and the record automatically, the number 1 is already given by database itself. Now let me tell you one more thing, right. I am trying to insert one more query, one more table here. Let me say test1 values. Okay, say another something called it as programming languages. Yes. Now I do insert one more record into the same table. Execute this, what is going to happen? Automatically number 2 comes once you insert the first table. Okay. So as soon as if you insert the second record, it giving the value as this. And if I am trying to insert one more table, insert into test1 values, right. The value is something called as a test string, right. So now I do one thing, I will just execute this particular table, right. So insert into, alright. So now let me execute this particular query, one more record is inserted, and the record value is, you can just see that there is one more record is inserted, record number 3. Okay. So, hope you understand the meaning of identity here, right. See that whenever any column of a particular table, okay, any column of a particular table, if you write it as identity, that column values will not be supplied from the user end. Okay. If I am writing this is a query is error query, and this is correct one. Yes, if I am do write this particular thing, this will be make it as error query, and this will make it as correct one. All right. So, now see that test ID integer primary key identity will starts from 1 and 1. So, this identity columns always starts from nothing but it will start from 1 and always the next record incremented by 1. Okay. Nothing but you can write this identity first value maybe 10, maybe 100, maybe 99 or maybe 1000. So, depends on you where you want to start your records. Okay. So, just start your records from that particular number, and the second one is a seed. Okay. That means to say that it incrementation, how much you need to have a incrementation for each and every individual record. So, that you when you insert the 3 records, when you execute this particular query, so that you will get the record number 3. Am I very clear, guys? Am I very clear? Right. So, now I will do one more to show you. Okay. I will do one thing. I am trying to delete a query or delete a record from that. How to delete a record? Delete from the table. Okay. I want to delete a record where ID of a particular test is 3. So, I want to delete a record whose ID is 3. How do I delete? Delete from the table name is what? Test1 is a table name where if I am not writing a where clause, it will delete all the records. Hope you understand, right? Hope you already know that. Okay. So, where test ID column is probably the value is 3, nothing but it has to delete a record where whenever the ID 3 is matches, it want to delete this particular record. So, now let me show you, let me execute it. A record is got deleted and execute this particular query. There is right now only 2 records, but here what I want to do is I want to insert a new record now, right. For example, I want to insert one more record here. So, how do I insert here? Insert into the table name is test1 values. I want to insert the record number, something call it as testing. Yes, one more record is inserted, but what is the record number here? Let us say select star from, right. So, test1. Okay. So, when I say test1, what is the record you will get the number? See that if you observe carefully, the record number right now it is 4, not 3. Okay. So, because of what your inserted identity value is on. Whenever identity value is on, there is no gaps between the records, nothing but even though record is deleted in between, the record will not be repeated again, nothing but you can get the next number, but it will not get the current number. Am I very clear? So, this is something call it as identity in the databases of SQL Server. Please do remember this, it is very important thing. So, why am important thing I am telling you here is, this is a column, identity is one of a very important factor which takes a first one is seed, second one is increment. Seed in the sense, seed mean to say that start value, right, whereas incrementation stands for how much you need to increment. Increment between right, next incrementation how much you want. Okay. And this always you need to apply a primary key column of a table, and that column is always an ID column. All right. So, when what is the conclusion I want to tell you here is, whenever you can create any table in your database, there should be an identity column compulsory. Right. So, compulsory there should be an identity column, because when I have this identity column, when I have this ID column, I can make a relations will be very easy, nothing but I can make a relation between multiple tables of that based on the ID columns. Please do remember this. Okay. So, it is very important thing you need to remember for sure whenever you want to make a relations between a multiple tables. When you have a records multiple tables, then you have to go for identity. And the other databases like Oracle, other database like DB2, this identity word they usually call it as auto increment. Okay. Right. So, in Oracle database or in MySQL database, right, this auto identity basically call it as auto increment. Okay. Automatic incrementation column values. Yes, right. Now, let me come to the place where we have to create our registration page. In the registration page, I do have a same thing. First, I need an ID column, right. It is a type of integer column and it may be a primary key column always, and it is an identity column, and the user's record always starts from 1, it has to be incremented by 1, the first thing is. And the second thing is a first name column, right. In first name column it is a varchar column basically, and the size of basically a 50, right. And the next one is last name column, right. Once you say last name column, it is also varchar column, it's a size of 50 now, all right. And the next one is, what is the next column we have here, just check it out. We have a next column called username column, all right. Go to database again, you have something called username column, it is also varchar type column which is size of 50, right. And then followed by you have a password column, it is also varchar column which is the size of again 50 or 60, depends on you, right. And the next one is mobile number. So, mobile number is type of integer, right. So, basically integer does not have a proper size, you need to go for big int, nothing but integer cannot hold the 10 digit at a time. So, that if it is like integer and long in your programming, right, integer takes only 4 bytes where long take 8 bytes of memory, it is also same, right, int and big int, right. And then followed by a mobile number, followed by email ID, it is also varchar type column which is size is 50. Next one is a gender, it is also varchar type column, it is also size is 50, and the last column is what, address column, right, it is varchar, you can just give a size as something like max, nothing but there is no limit to this particular column, nothing but you can enter any number of characters to it, right. So, here within the our eShoppy website, within a eShoppy database, I am trying to create the table name called tbl_user data, where here this particular table has to be hold the number of records which is sent from the front end, because as we are not developing an application of front end, we are just only database designers or database table designers, so that you just need to have this kind of queries. All right. Try to execute this particular query, it just show you the message called command or command completed successfully, nothing but your record or your table is got inserted or your table is got executed on the table. How to see the table data? Let us say select star from tbl_user registration data. With this particular table you can able to see the data here. Is there any data is presented in my table now? No data is presented here, all the table columns are empty columns now. So, when you as a developer, what you need to do is, when you are trying to insert some record here, okay, for example, let us see, for example, I just want to execute this particular query, right, no data is here. Now, let me check it with, for example, I want to insert some record. Insert some records. Already we have learned about inserting a records into the table, right. So, same thing I want to apply here, but basically what will happen is this or the entire data which will be passed from the front end application, not from the back end application, but we want to test as a database developer. Okay, insert into the table name is tbl underscore user info or registration table data. I need to say values to it. What are the values? We need to pass it to this. Okay. Now let me check it out what the values I need to pass here. So identity ID column, the value is supposed to not to pass because the value which is automatically incremented, and the followed by first name. First name is say APSSDC, last name again APSSDC, right. Then next column is what? Username, say APSSDC1, password is password, right. Next column is what? A mobile number column, 987 some number which is of 10-digit number, and then followed by email ID, say apssdc@gmail.com, right. Then followed by email ID, followed by gender. Gender is something say male, and the last column is address column. It is say right. Just write some thing here and try to close here. So now try to insert this particular record now, right. So if I say insert, now what will happen is your record is inserted into this particular table called tbl underscore user registration data. Now execute this particular table again. So how many records you are getting here? You are getting the first record, nothing but as soon as when a registration has been finished, the first record is able to, and here what is the thing is it is ready to insert one more record. Now let me show you how to insert this particular second record now. Let's see. For example, first record is inserted, I want to insert some more record here. Insert into the table name is tbl underscore user info and values, right. So now let me say APSSDC11 or 12, or let's say APSSDC13, first name, last name, followed by username 11, password is again password, mobile number, right, and followed by APSSDC11 at gmail.com. It's supposed to be something, right. So it's supposed to be something say AP. All right. So close this particular table and insert this particular record or insert another record into the same table now. How many records we have inserted now? We are inserted 2 records now. Now let me show you what is those 2 records here. Say select star from the table name is tbl underscore user registration data. Execute this particular table and you can see that 2 records is inserted here, right. Out of which these 2 columns, out of which that first column ID column we are not passing this value. This is a value which is automatically generated by your table itself, right. The remaining columns I am passing here. Let's see, these are the values I am passing, but here how many columns I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and followed by 9 columns I have, in which how many values I am passing here? Let's see here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and the last one is 8. So rest of the one particular column value which is not passing from my end, this is a value automatically passed from your database itself. Understood? Am I very clear on this? See that first I am trying to create a database here. Within the database I am trying to create one table here, right. So what is one thing I just want to observe here is, right, for example, if I am trying to insert some records here, insert into tbl underscore user data, say values, all right. So if I am trying to insert some null values, let's say all I am inserting some null values here, right. So which is not any valid data here, let's say, right, say something you can just say like APSSDC at gmail.com and followed by let's say female and followed by address, right. So, now try to close this particular table and insert this record. So, what is going to happen here, sorry, there is something wrong with our query here, just we have missed a comma there, right. Every value has to be separated by comma, right. So, now let us see this, what is going to happen here. Let us see here, we have inserted some values which is of non-identity values here. So, one of the chord rule is telling you that value is supposed to not to have something, nothing but when I am trying to insert some record, right, that record supposed to not to have this empty values, nothing but it is supposed to be not null value. So, for that we have to learn one more important concept in the database. Okay. So, one more very important database, call it as constraints. Have you already heard about this earlier, right? So, this constraint is one of the topic, or constraint is one of the place where we can provide a conditions to our database, right. We can provide some conditions to a database, and there are a few different constraints that support by SQL Server. First is unique, second one is a not null, third one is a primary key, fourth one is a check, and the last one is a foreign key, right. So, So, before we talk about the next factor, we need to go for the concept of, constraints, okay, right. So, I am trying to we have to learn about this. Okay. So, I do not have much time today to talk about this constraint. Tomorrow we are going to talk about these constraints, alright. So, when we talk about constraint, we will avoid something is a duplications which is presented in your database table, so that our table becomes unique and the table becomes very secure, does not have a null values, does not have any duplications into it. So, if you want to go for that, you have to wait it for tomorrow's session. So, in tomorrow's session, we are going to learn about a constraint so that our database becomes very simple. Okay. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day. And by the way, I am Anil Kumar, the trainer of APSSDC.